India can go cashless tomorrow. And this idea, which I call Idea 1, passes Test 1. I am G. Ramachandran, Ramach to my associates and my friends, and my email is indiagrow@gmail.com. Before we go into the question, the doubt, and then what answer I have in mind, let's go back to Sunday, November 27, 2016, 11 a.m. The Prime Minister's very inspiring Mann Ki Baat. We call it MKB. The Prime Minister has set off a wave of expectation, fellow feeling, optimism, participation, and trust. My team and I call this the spirit of NH6. The highway to fulfillment is on. India needs to go cashless, and it would do this by making an incentive payment of P% both to the buyer and the seller involved in a cashless transaction. This is how. There's a buyer and a seller, and the seller sells goods or provides a service. The buyer makes a cashless payment to the seller. This transaction is recorded, and our nation's exchequer then processes the transaction in order to make two payments. The first payment is made to the buyer, P% of the value as an incentive. The second payment is made to the seller of equivalent magnitude, P% of the value of the transaction. The P% incentive could be a function of the savings bank rate, and I did tell you that my team has begun work on this, and we have come quite a distance. Further, the government could consider giving the e-payment device free of cost to all accredited and verified account holders. Unlike any other system in vogue, this incentive is the opposite of a transaction tax, where the exchequer makes a payment based on the value of the transaction, supported by a cashless payment. Would this system be vulnerable to gross abuse? How naive. You want to make payments to both buyer and seller, and then they can cheat the exchequer? How simplistic. There'll be innumerable back and forth circular transactions. Buyer will turn seller, seller will turn buyer. Together they will repeat this until the exchequer is wholly depleted by the payouts of the P% incentive on cashless transactions. Depleting the exchequer has been practiced for long. We've been demeaning the spirit of NH6. We gotta change. The highway to fulfillment will need rules. And here they are. First, unaccounted and untaxed transactions hurt both the center and the states. So, the states and the center together will seek goal congruence. The move to cashless payments by households and receipts by firms, regardless of their size, through this payment of the P% incentive, will run concurrently with the implementation of General Sales Tax or GST. Or, better, this way, the move to cashless payments by households and receipts by firms should precede the implementation of GST. So, the Prime Minister has made India GST ready. It's not just about black money and the concerns that the national exchequer has to face. Every state has its own problems pertinent to funding the political party's promises to people who have voted that party to their own state capitals. Remember, they too face the problem of unaccounted and untaxed transactions. So, any effort to cheating the exchequer will somehow have to unravel, and here's how we could do this. Let's consider my favorite dhaba on the National Highway 6, This daba, the word daba, is now in the concise Oxford English Dictionary. Daba has entered the concise Oxford English Dictionary. And that's great, isn't it? So consider a diner wanting to eat roti, salad, and yogurt at my favorite daba. Here comes a diner, and there's a daba. The delivery of the roti, salad, and yogurt, and then the cashless payment. This transaction gets into the servers serving the nation's exchequer and my state's exchequer as well. And as always, we will pay the incentive to the diner and the daba. The P% of value to the left, that's to the diner, and the P% of the value to the right, and that's to the daba. And now, let's see what happens at my favorite daba on NH6. The diner will have to turn seller. He has to sell the meal to cheat and collect the incentive once more. And wouldn't it look very ludicrous? Diner, daba, and the cashless payment is now being made by the daba. And the diner would be selling roti, salad, and yogurt. And did she or he not eat it? How funny. Our nation's exchequer would record this transaction as well and make the second payment. The second payment in the sense that they have turned from being buyer to seller and seller to buyer. They've collected 2 times now. The first P when the diner ate the meal, and the second P when the diner sold the meal. And that's exactly this. Would this go unnoticed? How strange if it did. It shouldn't. So what do we have now? We are already collaborating to better govern our economy. The state governments and the central government need to think together and to act together. Cashless transactions will cut or discourage the revenue leakages to both the states and to the center. Goal congruence is therefore necessary and, quite fortunately, wholly possible. The states and the center should have shared fiscal networks and fiscal processes. Thank you for your time and thank you for your interest. I am G. Ramachandran, Ramach to my associates and my friends, and my email is indiagrow@gmail.com.